Alrighty. Let's give it a go. So one of the things that I wanted to answer, I know our team has been talking about is, we put out this goal, we're running a campaign that we haven't done for 2 years or so. What's sort of the reasoning behind that? Um, as I've said in worship, we absolutely want to tell the stories of the difference that our church makes in the world. And so we sent out a letter on Friday. You'll probably get that. Just quote some people who said, hey, I got connected to something because of our church. I felt welcome because of our church. I'm just really proud that this church is so focused on the community. So, one, it's fantastic to just tell the stories, the difference our church makes. Two, hearing the stories of people like Steve who say, hey, here's what giving looks like for me. It's a teaching opportunity. And so it's important to do that. But one of the things I wanted to do today was give a little bit of background on this info sheet that we sent out. We really can't talk about it in too much depth on a Sunday morning, or it kind of gets pretty long. But also, I have some just financial figures over the last couple of years that I thought are worth sharing with you guys. So I want to start there. I think I've got a slide, if you've got it for me. I went and looked at some of the budget trends for our church from 2021 to 2024 and just pulled up some categories that I thought were significant and wanted to show you. So we'll dig into these a little bit more. But there's a couple of things I think are worth noting. One is that in those 3 years, our staff costs have actually gone down. Well, we brought on a couple more staff. We've reorganized in some ways, and so that has saved us some costs. Administrative costs have held pretty steady. A couple of years ago, we renegotiated a copier contract by about half to save money there. But some of the realities is that there are different costs that have gone up over the last couple of years, whether it's utilities costs that have gone up by 44%, insurance costs up by 35%, ministry and mission giving. So this is like money we're using to do ministry, money we're giving away, money we're giving to the conference as part of apportionment so that ministry is done in Ohio and in the global area. That's up 50%, which is really good. It's more money going to ministry in the last couple of years. And then finally, giving has stayed relatively steady, that we saw a bit of a downtick last year. I'll dig into these a little bit more. So can you my next slide, Jamie? This is just a big picture of the staffing costs. I think it was 2021 that I have the best data from. That's why we stopped there. And so we were almost at $150,000 in staffing costs for 2021. We had a staff person who resigned a couple years ago. We used it as an opportunity to reorganize some of the responsibilities and roles in the church. Since then, we actually have 2 more staff positions, but we've saved a good amount of money. I expect that our staffing costs will actually go down again in 2026. It might tick up to 2025, but then come back down because the conference is changing some of the ways they do benefits packages. That should save our church some money. So it's really good news here to see that we haven't really cut staff over the last few years. We have no fewer staff members than we did. We actually have more than we did in 2021, and yet we've been able to hang on those costs and keep them lower to spend money in other places. So that's one positive I wanted to point out. The next slide, I think, is about building and trustees. So one of the things that we've experienced this year in 2025 is one of those years where everything seemed to break. We have had so many technicians working on our heat and boilers, where I think we're probably going to be close to something around like $17,000, $18,000 in just repair cost on the heating itself, not counting building and trustees. But this is common. For churches, you will get high years like you see in 2021 where the costs go up because something breaks, something needs to be worked on, and you'll get low years like 2022, 2023 where they're much lower. This year, like I said, for 2025, I expect those costs will be higher. Part of what's contributing to that, do you have another slide for me? Is these 2 rates that are going up. From 2021, we spent about $28,000 on utilities, so that's water, that's sewer, that is phone and internet, that is electric, that's gas. And in 2024, that cost was up to $40,900. So there's not really a whole lot we can do about those. We've talked as a board, what would it look like to run some programs where maybe we can change out lighting fixtures? Maybe there are some systems that could be updated to be a little more energy efficient. But the reality is that rates across the board have kind of gone up. And so that's driven some of that increase in cost. And then insurance is one of those things that whenever I see the the letter in the mail that tells us our coming year premium, I just kind of hold my breath when I open the letter. It's probably something like an 8 to 10% increase nearly every year. So that's just to cover the church, to make sure that everything from if there's a fire, if there's a flood, if there's hail damage that affects the roof, if there's a leak, something major, we would have protection for that. It covers other things like liability of staff. But the truth is that insurance rates have just kind of risen over the last few years. And so I think now for 2025 will be over $16,000 in insurance costs. And we anticipate that will rise a little bit. So these are some of the costs we don't have a whole lot of control over, and that affects that trustee line. Can you give me one more slide? This is just a pattern of giving. I will say that I think that 2021 is artificially inflated because of a bookkeeping note. But 2022 was 233, 2023 was 235, and then last year we had a tick lower. And so it's been fairly steady up and down years, apart from some major things. So we actually had a large gift last year that we used to put away into some future savings for capital improvements. So I'll give you one example of that. We took $10,000 of a gift we received last year. We invested it into our foundation. Between the money we've invested with them over the last couple years out of budgets, yearly budgets, we were putting away money. When we got a gift, we would start and give a big chunk to it. We had about $32,000 in that account over 2 years because of the investments gaining. We had gained about $8,000. And so part of the repair costs we had for the heating and cooling, we were actually able to offset a portion of that because we had been proactive in years past to put money aside to let it grow, so we'd be able to continue to do that. One of the things I'll say about the budget for 2026 is we're looking ahead. In 2025, because of cost, we weren't able to put money away like that consistently out of the budget. We want to get back to that. That's something that we've already seen the benefit of, so we want to be able to do that again in the coming year. Do you have any more slides back there? Yeah, this is one I just want to celebrate. So this is anywhere we've spent money in ministry. So that might be fall festival, it might be an Easter egg hunt, it might be expenses for worship or expenses for discipleship or expenses, anything related to ministry we do at the church specifically, outside of like staffing costs and building costs and administrative costs. That has risen in addition to our apportionments by 55%. And to me, that's a testament of over the last couple of years, we've seen our programming and the ministry and missions we do here at the church just dramatically increase. And so, yeah, there's a cost to that, but I'm really proud of this number. It's great to see more happening and more ministry being done here. So, I mean, if we could do that again in 3 years, I'd love to see that because I know that increase would be all about more lives being touched, more ministry being done, more programming. Is that my last slide? I got one more. Okay, so this is some of the overall we already talked about, but all these kind of add up to this picture of saying, okay, it's probably time for us to put a number out there of around 250. We think that allows us to put together a consistent budget that can plan for the future, that can cover rising costs, that makes sure we don't have to make any cuts in places that would be really important. So all that is just kind of that picture. We picked 250 not simply because it's a reflection of our budget, but also because it's a reflection of what our giving could be or potentially could be, look like. So can you jump ahead actually to that table for me? All those like tables and lines. Yeah, we put this out. You might have gotten it in the mail, and we have it available back there if you didn't get it. It's just a table. We kind of broke down and said, what does our giving look like? Who is giving in kind of what ranges? What might realistically be a way that we get to 250 together? So we assumed that perhaps there are a few people on one line that go up to the next. I know you can't see that very well, but the monthly gift are based off of annual amounts. So that $1,250 at the top to $1,667, we'd love to see one giver in that amount. And the middle point of that range is like $17,500. So the way this table, there you go. The way this table gets calculated, you take that middle point, multiply it by the number of givers, and that gives you that kind of total estimated annual amount. We know it will not stack up to be that. We know we may not get exactly that amount in each band. It's just a picture of allowing us to say, here's what it would look like. Here's information based off of our giving patterns of last year. And it allows people to say, oh, you know what? I actually can be a part of that. I know one of the things Jess and I are doing for this coming year is we're going to step up a level. We said, hey, we're okay. We can definitely do this. We want to be one of those givers at the 834. We're going to just make that mark by stretching a little bit. So we moved up a level, and that's sort of what we're asking people to pray about and think about how they might be able to do that. For some people, we know just staying consistently where you're at is already a tough ask. So we recognize people have different abilities and different financial environments going on. I showed you, now you can go back one more slide for me. All the talk about numbers, all the talk about budgets and tables is really about this. Making sure that the things that make us who we are, that God calls our church to do and be in the world, gets accomplished. We don't pay light bills because we want to pay light bills. It's not really fun to do that, but it's fun and great to know that people who are hurting because they have a loved one dealing with alcoholism can come and find a community in Al-Anon. It's great to know that we are helping to make our community a better place through stewardship and some of the green things that Paul is doing, whether it's recycling styrofoam or buckets or tech drive. It's great that we as a church get to be a part of helping people on the east side who are struggling with food insecurity. Every staff line, every trustee line, all of it goes in service of ministry. It's not really about paying staff. It's about making sure this ministry happens every single year. And so that's the part that I think is most exciting. And so the ways we put this together was we sort of just assigned costs and said, okay, well, we know Jenny's the choir director. Hers is going to end up in worship. Bruce is the accompaniment. Her salary ends up in worship. The building gets used for different purposes. We can say part of that cost goes to this category. So it was sort of Tracy and I sat down and went line by line through every single expense and said, how does this contribute to us doing one of those 4 ministry categories? And it gives us this kind of picture of how that money goes to use. Last I'll give you is, I have one more slide, right, before questions? Yeah, ways to give. We put this in the back of the flyer. One of the things we want to get better at as a team is to say, how do we encourage people to give in a variety of ways? I mentioned today for me, I do bill pay through my bank. It just comes out of my account. It sends a check straight to the church. I love it. But that may not be the best way for everybody to give. There's something called a qualified charitable distribution, where you can take money out of an IRA, and rather than paying taxes on it, whatever your marginal rate is, that entire amount can go to the church, and because or any charity, but because you never touched it, you don't have to pay taxes on it, and so it allows you to make a more impactful gift in a way. That's just one way we wanted people to consider. If you have an RMD where you're like, man, I have to take this, I'm going to have to pay taxes on this, you might consider saying, hey, I can give my RMD straight to the church. For some folks here, it looks like we get a quarterly check. Some people will send that to us monthly. Some people give us one amount for the whole year, and that's super fine. That's why when we did the estimate of giving card, we kind of gave those options so that we as the church know how best to receive those gifts. So just letting people know the different ways that are out there. We'll probably do some more teaching about, does anybody give to the Kroger Rewards, your points? You're signed up for community rewards? Yeah. When I first got here, Sandy said to me, you can give your points from Kroger to the church. I was like, look, Sandy, I love the church, but those are my gas points. But that's not how it works, right? These are separate. It's a really small portion of what you spend in their stores. And then we get a check once a month for maybe, what do you think, Dell?
Usually somewhere around
$80 a month, does that sound about right? Yeah. That's another stream of income for the church, just because people elected to have that small portion of their bill they spend at Kroger go to the Church of St. Andrew. And I can attest, it does not affect your points, because I don't want to give those up either. So I think that's all we wanted to cover. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what this 250 is all about, why we chose to do the campaign this year. And I also know you may have questions. So Tracy's here, Sandy's here, I see Dean and Steve here as well, folks who are part of finance or are part of the team. If you have a question, I'd be glad to answer it for you, or at least try.